I was a hippie, no, not a hippie, a beatniky, bohemian little brat at art school. I was going to be a painter, and I was quite good. And I finished up at the age of 16 being a commercial illustrator. But when we had a little pottery, a ceramic business, to put me through art school, so a couple of other students and myself, and I'd listen to these soap operas, you know, day in and day out while I'm decorating plates and painting on these ceramic plates. I'd be listening to the soap operas, and I said, I can bloody do that. I went in, precocious brat. I went in to this big radio station and did an audition doing various accents and the whole thing, and, you know, just off the top of my head. And I became the biggest radio actor in Australia, you know. And then I was into the theatre and the whole thing, and I did the first movie in Australia with Chips Rafferty, me first movie, and then it all began. Amazing.
I started life as a farmhand in Queensland.
Really?
Really? Why, you didn't think I was Australian, did you?
Yes, I had rather guessed.
You had, huh? Always thought I spoke as English as Macmillan.
When I went to MGM, when they put me on a contract, and the way I got the contract, I tested for the Rocky Graziano story. Somebody up there likes me. Talking like that from New York. And then some smart guy had me do an interview speaking rather correct Australian English at the end of the thing, and they said, sign this kid.
Darling, I am a desperate man. Unless you have dinner with me tomorrow night, I'm going to tell the Colonel we're secret lovers.
That's blackmail.
It's inevitable. So just why not enjoy it?
Because I'd come pretty well prepared as an actor, I didn't have to do much of the schooling, and they dumped me straight away into pictures like Raintree County with Liz, who's a friend of mine, Liz Taylor, and Monty Clift.
We each of us had a war to fight. You in your way, me in mine, Lincoln in his, but now?
Now, Lincoln has become a useful symbol, and you're going to cash in on it.
I don't cash in on any man. John, I'm organizing a new party.
Garwood, you'll always belong to the same party. The party of yourself. Get out.
I went right into working with these wonderful, wonderful people and learning every minute of my young life by doing it, you know. So it was a great experience. And then, of course, like the third or fourth or fifth or something picture, they put me in the Time Machine, which has become a kid's classic, you know, when I was young and gorgeous.
This is a time machine.
There were no real special effects. There were no computers in those days. This was all movie making and tricksters, you know, and cartooning and models and stuff like that. So for the Time Machine to have become so classically wonderful is a feat of movie making. And then, of course, old Hitchcock called me to do the birds. And so that was an immense experience too. All the seagulls, they'd feed them whiskey and wheat. Of course, it's illegal now. So they were wandering around. The only reason they were staying still is because they were half pissed, you know. Rocking around on their feet. And they did things like put raw meat in the lens, and these huge ravens would swoop into the lens and stuff like that. But we were weeks and weeks and weeks working with these bloody birds. Oh. I was poo-pooed on by every seagull in Northern California. Sunday in New York was fantastic. And it was, I love to play high comedy, and this was strictly high comedy. And Jane and I got on so beautifully. She was wonderful, just adorable. And we never stopped laughing. On screen, off screen, just laughing all the time.
Hello! I didn't knock because I wanted to surprise you. I drove from Albany in 2 hours and 20 minutes. I want you to marry me.
V.I.P.s was a wonderful experience because Tolly de Grunewald very, very cunningly got together Liz and Burton before Cleopatra was released and made this movie very quickly and very grandly with Orson Welles and Louis Jourdain and Margaret Rutherford and old Rod and Maggie Smith. And it was a wonderfully interesting, big movie, and they released it just before Cleopatra. And so it cashed in on all the publicity of Liz and Burton before they came out in Cleopatra. And it was magnificent.
I have taken you for granted. I thought I was giving you enough. But I was wrong. You wanted more.
I wanted less, Paul, not more. I wanted to be treated as a wife, not an expensive mistress.
And of course, that was my first movie with Maggie, and I fell madly in love with her. And then we did another lovely movie directed by John Ford in Ireland called Young Cassidy. There was a lovely scene where Dame Flora Robeson, my mother, had died. And I went to this vacant lot where there was an old hawthorn tree with the white flowers and whatnot. With me navvy's cap, I pulled off me head, and I went up to the tree and knelt by the tree and started to weep. And I was weeping, and Ford sitting there behind the camera like this, chewing on a handkerchief, filthy handkerchief always, with his eye patch. And so I wept, and I wept, and I wept, and finally I said, "Oh, Jesus, Jack, that's enough, isn't it?" He got up, came over, kicked me in the shins, and said, "You Australian son of a bitch, you made me cry. That's a rap." And we all went to the pub and got drunk. A true director with style. Zabriskie Point was very, very anti-American, and so much so that Antonioni would have the dailies, the cans of film, shipped directly to Rome, and gave a second set to MGM where they couldn't see what he was really doing. What he was doing was the most outrageous things about America and young people having sex orgies, and it was pretty wild. In those days, Dark of the Sun was a violent movie. I mean, nowadays they'd think it was a fairy tale, but it was pretty bad. It was pretty violent. Jack Cardiff was the director, and he's one of the greatest cameramen ever. So it was an immensely well-mounted and well-shot movie. And Darling Yvette, Mimure again, after Time Machine, so many years in between, we met again and had a wonderful time. She's adorable.
Where's Conrad?
Il est mort. He's dead.
You got him? Get him moving, Rufo.
I loved all my leading ladies, but I think the fun of working and loving at the same time, getting on well with somebody and doing good, constructive, immensely talented work was Maggie, I think. Maggie was a delight to work with. But of course, they've all been wonderful. I've been so lucky.
That's what I tried to say last night.
I had a wonderfully interesting youth, and sometimes wild youth. At that age, I was going all over the world, working with the most beautiful people in the world and the most talented people in the world. It was just an incredible life, you know. And it's still plodding along, as old as I am.
Just wait a minute. I'm no more used to the department. This is where we part company.
Rubbish. The department can't afford to lose men like you, Boise. Not after what you did today. Take the wheel.
I never look at my movies because it reminds me that I was fairly presentable in those days, and now I'm just an old codger.
Your touch can fill me with such burning desire.
I don't revel in the memorabilia at all. I'm interested in what's coming next.
With your kisses of fire.